What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Channel Unfiltered with Jamie Kane. Excited to have my guest today, Clayton Mooney, who has 25 plus years of MSP experience and is now a come to the dark side as a SaaS vendor, which we're really excited about. So, Clayton, good to have you on, man. And why don't you give everybody an introduction to who you are?
Hey, thank you so much. First of all, Jamie, thanks for having me. It's very
Sure, man.
important to connect like this, and I appreciate the time. So, a little bit about myself, just like you said, 25 years in the industry, been in the It's been MSP. It's been a part of my life. In fact, this where I'm heading today is been developed because of my desire to help MSPs be better than what they are today. But my background, owned an MSP for 17 years, sold it to a national company, went into their sales division over time, got promoted to the national sales director. When I exited that company, I went and worked for another MSP in the regional in the Gulf Coast, helped their sales efforts as well, and ran their account management team outside sales. So I had hunters and farmers that I managed and maintained a tight relationship with. And then I left that company to start going back into business on my own for myself. It was a part of being an entrepreneur that I just couldn't get away from. Today, as mentioned, I own MSP Report Card, which is a SaaS, an operating system for account managers in the MSP industry. So that's pretty much. We can get more detail. I know you have a couple of questions for me, so instead of me spoiling all the taking all the win out of everyone's sail, let me just let you ask me all the questions, and I'll be happy to answer.
Yeah, heck yeah, man. Well, I appreciate the and you're in Louisiana, right? Good old
Yeah. Yes.
Louisiana.
Uh-huh.
I was telling Clayton before we started recording that I've only been to Louisiana once as a kid. I remember driving through, and to this day was still some of the nicest people I've ever met in my entire life. I love the deep. I grew up in the South, but not the deep South. So I love the deep
Mhm.
South. Southern hospitality is very, very real. So, but yeah, I appreciate the introduction, man. And I do find it interesting because I mean, look, man, you were in the trenches as an MSP. I mean, I think most people that jump into the vendor side that start companies, man, they started because they saw a problem that they
Mhm.
had while they were working in that industry, right? In this case, as an MSP for you. And one of the things I think is I've learned as an outsider of the space coming in and about these QBRs, right? Is a lot of times they're kind of like a checkbox for MSPs. It's kind of feeling like we just got to get it done. It's a quarterly QBR. It's part of the process,
Mhm.
right? But
Correct.
what I find interesting in MSP Report Card is that you're positioning the QBR as an operating system of the client relationship. So why do you view it that way? Like why is it this default operating system, this opportunity, as opposed to a box to be checked as part of the
Yeah.
standard agreement, right, with the client?
Yeah. So, Jamie, you mentioned we're on a limited time frame. I could probably spend an hour just on that one question. The reality is the MSP industry is making an evolution. We're changing, we're evolving. But, to really pinpoint what you said a minute ago, when I was an MSP owner and when I worked for MSPs, the account management um, role itself was lacking. The tools were lacking. And I think what I've witnessed is so many tools out there, platforms that have been written. They're very tech driven. They're tech centric, right? So you create a report and then you go meet with your clients, and it's still very technical. It's how many tickets, how many this, how many that. It's the CEOs, the executives of your clients. That's a bore fest. They don't want to hear those things. They expect it, right? So I wanted to create a platform that is going to fit into the new evolution of MSPs, which is more of the strategic business, right? I think MSP industry is going to make that evolution change. And if you're not a part of it, you're going to be left behind, just like those break fix companies back 10, 15 years ago that never transitioned to MSP. They were left behind, right? Then the MSPs that were doing a great job with their package, with their offering, but they didn't jump on to the cybersecurity stacks and the additional compliance requirements that clients and businesses need today. Those that didn't do it, are being left behind. Today, the change, strategic planning, right? AI, how are you working AI into your conversations with your clients? You have to make the shift. They have to see you as that strategic business advisor. And that's where the platform really comes in. The reason it's an operating system is it helps your account managers run through meetings that give a guided tour, if you would. So it really is very user friendly, and it helps
Mhm.
your account managers really run through your monthly, your quarterly, your annual, and even budgeting for your clients. So again, it makes this big shift and it helps you be prepared for where the industry's heading.
I think the core of what you said though is transformation. Like you have seen, you were in the space for a long time and you saw 3 or 4 different hype cycles, different cycles of the MSP channel, emerging technologies, right? Like cyber, I'm sure you remember cybersecurity being like the huge thing that everybody was talking about, right? Now it is
Yeah.
AI, and you mentioned AI yourself. Where do you think AI and the MSP stack is actually going to earn its keep? Because I do think, look, I run an AI native company, right? I'm not, I
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, I'm skeptical of the promises that a lot of AI companies make and AI as a whole is making, right? We are very, very narrowly focused on certain outcomes that we're trying to deliver. I do not think AI is this magical bullet that's going to fix everything. I believe that AI, if you want to win with AI, you need to know the outcome before the implementation, right?
Yeah.
This is our first time talking, so you know where I stand on
Yeah.
these things, right? Where do you personally, in emerging technology, as someone that knows the space intimately, where does AI really earn its keep, in your opinion, in this transformation period for MSPs?
Yeah. I think I love the question because, and I think people need to start thinking about that question. And my response and my answer to that is AI. If you're an MSP, you need to start talking to your clients about AI. But if your conversation ends with, let me show you how to write better content, how to help you with marketing and sales, which are all important. But if your conversation is simply how to make content, you're missing the boat. You're missing the opportunity. But the conversations you need to have is how do you align AI with the business's goals? So, first, you have to understand what your client's business goals are. What are their aspirations? What are their growth opportunities? So, these are conversations, these are answers and questions that you need to have with your clients before you can even plug in AI. And again, I'm going back. I'm going back to whether you use my platform or a platform. You need to have the shift into the conversation. You need to be that strategic advisor. You need to earn that trust with your clients. Again, real quick, a lot of MSPs don't meet with their clients. It's only when something's broken, you need to sell something, or it's time to renew the agreement that you're actually meeting with your clients. You got to make the shift. You got to start the conversations early now, and you got to keep the conversations with C-level ownership CEOs. Once you have that conversations, understand what their business growths are, what their aspirations are, what their business looks like in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. Once you have that, you start building that trust. Then you can introduce real AI conversations. How do you improve processes? How do you improve the business? Are there any financial improvements that can happen? So again, the conversation is shouldn't be just about content or low hanging fruit when it comes to AI. It should be more business impact. So I think that's my response and what I think the channel, the MSP businesses should be focused on when it comes to AI.
Yeah, it sounds like you think the bigger opportunity is in sell through, not sell to. Do I have that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think some people are already starting to have the AI conversation in the sales cycle, right? They're putting that out. Like again, everything's transit. We all evolve. A couple years ago, people walked in and it was like, let's talk about security and the threat out there, which is still a very viable conversation to have with businesses because big, large, small, every business has security threats. I think
Yeah.
today we're starting to see MSPs using the conversation of AI in the sales cycle. I think it's important. But again, what are you going to do with the conversation past let's just talk and use the buzzword. We got to have a system in place to actually be able to benefit that business.
Do you do you think the MSP space is uh right on time, above or behind on AI?
That's hard to say. I think the I've heard a lot of MSPs talk about it, and they're trying to implement it. I think MSPs as a tool for running their business and helping them support their clients, I see a lot of adoption in that. And so I think that that's something you need to do as well, right? As a business owner of an MSP, you need to be as efficient as possible, right? Expenses aren't changing, costs aren't going down. So you have to use AI to benefit your own business. And I see that. I see the adoption there. But where I don't know if a lot of businesses have fully adopted is how are they using AI to benefit their clients? So again, it's a mix. It's a great question. I feel like the place where I think MSPs are behind is introducing it to their clients.
Okay. One of the things that I think, I've been thinking about a lot, actually for a while. So, our original domain was, a company HelpGhost.ai. And forever ago, I changed it to HelpGhost.io because I saw a pipeline coming down where there was AI fatigue. And even as an AI native
Mm-hmm.
founder, I was feeling that AI fatigue already. I think if you go on any social media platform outside of LinkedIn, you're gonna see people in the comments because I see them. Anytime an AI post comes up or AI fact or
Yeah.
anything, there's a lot of like, there's a lot of fatigue, obviously, but there's also like a lot of like pushback and frankly a lot of
Mm-hmm.
anger and those sorts of things,
Yeah.
which I find. But at the same time, the world and businesses specifically are deploying AI solutions or trying to as fast as they can. How do we balance um, the hype cycle versus the reality of the gains, right? And how do MSPs actually determine that? Because the last thing you want to do is implement AI and not know what you're trying to do with it, right? And just to have it, right? And I think
Yeah.
I think there's a report that actually said that employees with the most AI use reported the highest levels of efficiency, but also reported incredibly high levels of burnout. So we're seeing like this,
Mm.
just like there is a double-edged sword here. I think the gains, clearly, from my perspective, the gains are a huge opportunity, but I also believe in balancing things and putting them in their proper place. So to go back to my original question, how do we balance that the AI fatigue versus the actual gains that
Mhm.
can be made?
Yeah, balance. I think balance, and you're right. You go on social media today, and you see not only do you see AI posts, right? You see all when you read it and see it's AI, and you kind of lose some authentic um, response when you see that, or when you read it and you're like, is this really the way this person thinks, or did he just put it in AI and let AI spit it out? On top of that, then you see so many AI videos that are going around, and you almost can pick those out as well. And so I think if you're marketing your company and your product, again, I think AI is important to use and help with um, efficiencies and proper. I use it a lot to help my grammar, right? I make sure that everything's reading properly, but it's a fine line to make sure that it's my thoughts. And so I think it's important to really review if you're using AI for content. It's very important to review what AI is pushing out. Is it capturing your true thought, or is it capturing their thought on what they AI thinks you should be saying? With that, the other part of it is the balance is and how do you deploy it. Again, that's where I think businesses in the MSP space need to really adopt AI and know where they're heading. What are we doing? And you can't take the approach of I think I need to do it because everyone says I need to do it. You need to educate and learn, and there's a lot of partners out there, a lot of companies like you guys that are helping MSPs use the right AI in the right way.
Yeah, for sure. For MSP Report Card, you ran an MSP for you said 17 years, is that right? And then
Mhm.
you sold it,
Yeah.
right? Um, what specific things were you doing or not doing for clients back then that you would give yourself an F for today using MSP
Mm.
Report Card?
Well, having a plan, right, and having a system. I remember, and even you know, recently, when I was managing account managers for other businesses, I have folders filled with Excel documents, PowerPoints, Word documents, agendas. There's so many variations of what a monthly meeting, quarterly meeting, annual meeting should look like for clients. That's the one thing that I would definitely say would be an F is the constant trying to figure out what would be the right cadence to meet with my clients and have a meaningful conversation. So definitely F, because I was just trying to figure it out. Where today, I think I'm still figuring out, but I have a system in place that really helps um, other MSPs be successful and have the right cadence.
Yeah, I want to kind of go back to something you said earlier about client relationships, right? And how in your experience, MSPs don't contact the client enough, right? Do you
Yeah.
think with with AI automation, the emerging I guess let me preface my question. I'm a very strong believer that AI is an augmenting tool and an amplifying tool, not ever tool for replacement. It can replace the tedious, mundane processes, right, that nobody wants to do, right? But what that's
Mm-hmm.
doing is augmenting or increasing capacity to do and accomplish other things. I'm a very strong believer that I think this space, and it sounds like you are too, is heading more towards it's always been client centric, but relationship centric. Because
Yeah.
that's really
Yeah.
even today, that's where MSPs differentiate from each other is the human connection that they have with their clients. MSPs share the same tech stack. They all have the PSMs,
Mm-hmm.
the RMMs,
Correct.
the knowledge
Yeah.
bases, this, that, and the other, right? AI is now becoming commoditized, right? So you cannot claim AI as a differentiator anymore, right? Really, it's really going to come down to is the interpersonal relationship and the processes that you have in place to own that and the client experience, right? I'm a big believer
Yeah.
in this saying that customer happiness is the largest moat that you can have, right? When you look at the MSP and the evolution of what's occurring,
Yeah.
obviously client relationships is the broader category, but where specifically should MSP start? Like, where's the biggest opportunity in client
Mm-hmm.
relations?
Jamie, you just teed me up to tell you my beliefs and thoughts on this matter perfectly. Let me share with you. And I used to say 90%, and then one of the industry leaders in our MSP market corrected me. He said 98%. He said 98% of all MSPs never meet with their clients. I mentioned this earlier, right? They're only meeting with their clients when something's broken, when there's a something to sell, a proposal, or it's time to renew. That's not a relationship. You said a few things. Everyone's using the same stack, right? Again, different names, different brands, different vendors, but it's basically the same thing. The industry, is MSP. It's help desk, it's security, it's response time, it's all the things that you're selling as an MSP owner. The guy down the street, across the country, across state, is selling a very similar package. So what is going to change? What's going to be what's the thing that's going to make you different? Well, when I've met with so many prospects in trying to sell MSP services, do you know 99% of every business I went and spoke with never saw documentation? And then I would even ask, when's the last time you've seen a backup report? Right? How do you know your stuff's being backed up? And oftentimes I get oh, it's good. We're paying for it. Oh, I get you're paying for it, and I'm sure it is good, and I'm sure your MSP is doing it without a problem. Everything's good. But as the business owner, shouldn't you or wouldn't you like to see a report showing that your backup's running? Yeah, of course. So again, the client relationship is something that MSPs have to start doing. That evolution of strategic planning is happening. We're in the middle of it right now. And those that aren't adopting the account management, the strategic planning, the strategic meetings with your clients, you're going to be left behind. The thing that I think is super important as well is you can't just say, all right, I'll just do a quarterly meeting with my clients. Let me implement quarterly. Well, that's 4 times a year. Do you build trust in 4 times a year? I don't think so. I think you need to have those monthly meetings, which a lot of MSPs push back on because of the time management. That goes back to who are you hiring for your account management? What kind of emphasis have you put in? I think so many people, it's a secondary thought. It's the, I need support, I need support, I need engineers, I need help desk, I need more people. And then so the account management, okay, you want to hire an account manager? Well, no, I don't have the budget. It needs to shift. You got to make the account managers as a priority in your business because those relationships are going to be so important to the strength of your company because you're actually helping your clients. It has to happen. The conversations have to happen. The meetings have to happen. The check-ins have to happen. The trust has to be built. And that's the account management role. And it's and those are adding to the shift that we're seeing today.
Do you, well, I think, coming from my background and spending my entire professional career, most of it in SaaS, right? I saw the number one, actually, let me rephrase this. I won't even speak from my own personal experience. I'll speak from like what the stats say. The top two reasons a customer will cancel a SaaS product is a product not working and poor customer
Mm-hmm.
service. Those are one and two,
Mm-hmm.
and they're typically
Right.
interchangeable, right? The modern customer today, I don't know if this applies to MSPs or not, but we might as well talk about it. The modern customer today is willing to change vendors
Mm-hmm.
or companies after one critical failure, one,
Mm.
right? And that and
Yeah.
that's and so I when I think about my experience in SaaS, I was never in customer support or service, right? I was in sales, but I worked with customer support a ton because a
Yeah.
lot of times I was the face of the company for the customer, right? And I made a really big emphasis in my career of not getting a deal signed and then disappearing. Like I wanted to be there for the client, right? If they needed me. What I saw time and time and time and time again was uh was not support was there, but the experience, because
Mm-hmm.
that's really what this is. It used to be customer service, then customer
Yeah.
support. Now it's client experience or customer experience. It's all about that experience, right? And I think it's
Right.
because look, clients understand that things will go wrong, and they can be okay with things happening, right? As long as it's not
Yeah.
a critical failure, like I mentioned, right? Like they know bugs are going to happen, things people are going to drop the ball. They get that. What they are not okay with is not having that experience, knowing that they are a top priority. What they're
Mm-hmm.
not okay with is not being communicated with and not being treated as a valuable part of that business's customer base, right? Because they
Yeah.
are, right? They look, I'm giving you my hard earned. This is especially true for SMBs,
Mm-hmm.
which
Yeah.
MSPs are SMBs, right? For the most
Mm-hmm.
part, I'm giving you my hard earned money, which today is very difficult to come by, and I expect a certain level of experience to come along
Yeah.
with that, right?
Yeah.
I say all of that not to preach, but at the core of what an MSP is an experience company, is a
Mm-hmm.
support company. I get the technical, obviously
Yeah.
that is the means of which you provide that experience, but at your core, you're a support and experience company, right? How do MSPs create that capacity outside of AI, right? Because I obviously
Mm-hmm.
we've already
Yeah.
talked about that, but
Yeah.
how do they create that capacity and that culture? Because you ran an MSP that sounds like focused on this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How do they do that?
Yeah. So again,
That
another
was a long
topic.
question. I'm sorry. That was
No,
a
no.
long build up. I apologize,
Well,
man. Yeah.
I'm gonna. I appreciate the detailed in your question, and again, it's another question I could spend an hour or two or longer, a week on it if I had it. But we talk about the experience, and that's what it is. Let's think about your experience at a restaurant, right? You had either bad service, bad food, or something just wasn't right. you you have a manager come out and he says, hey, I'm sorry about the food, or he or she handles it properly, right? You're not asking for free food or anything like that. But if they come out and they say, hey, we're going to discount, we're going to give you a gift card, we're going to give you whatever it may be, or even if they just came out and apologized and told you how they're going to make it right for you and your experience, you go back to that restaurant. Now, in the flip side, the same experience at the same restaurant, and the manager doesn't even come visit you, and you're now, or even the server or waitress or waiter doesn't even acknowledge that you've had a bad experience and whatever it may have been, likelihood you're not coming back. So it's all about, if it's okay to make a mistake, right? We're human. We should be able to make mistakes in life, whether it's business or personal. But it's all about how do you recover from those mistakes? How do you recover from that error? And it's about communication. It's about being in front of your clients and ensuring that you accept it, and this is how you're going to resolve the issue. But you can't do it if you're not talking to your clients. And it goes a lot longer, a lot further with your clients if that's not the only time they hear from you. Again, it goes back to that cadence of routine um, communications. Um, so again, it's very important. I also say, and here's just a tidbit for anyone interested, is you do have to elevate your level of response to the level of frustration that your client may have. So if you get a phone call from a client that's extremely frustrated or upset at whatever it may have been, whether it's on you or not on you, elevate that response, right? Like if they're super upset because an employee isn't working for a day, a whole, and imagine the amount of lost productivity because their employee wasn't able to continue to work, and they're super frustrated and upset about it. Maybe they lost a big contract, they lost revenue, whatever it may have been. If your initial response is, okay, sorry, we'll get to it, well, their level of frustration is here and your response was down here. You need to level up, right? If they're very frustrated, you need to share with them how you're immediately going to resolve it, and meet them at their level of frustration with your level of communication and how you're going to respond to it. So again, whether it's customer experience, customer service, whatever that may be in your business, customer experience is very important. So
Yeah.
remember that when communicating with your
I
clients. But again, that goes, not to cut you off, Jamie.
No,
Final
you're good.
thought is,
Yeah,
but
sorry.
that's why ongoing cadence, ongoing communication, it builds that relationship of trust. So when you
Yeah.
do make a little mistake or an error or something doesn't happen the way you expected, when you have that trust, that relationship, and that communication is way different than when you have no communication.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I want to kind of come back to how do MSP, because I can hear the question now. I agree with all that. That's all well and
Mhm.
fine. And I think I'm speaking as the MSP, right? You hit the nail on the head. But like I don't have
Yeah.
time to do that.
Yeah.
Like I don't
Well,
traditionally the MSP doesn't have, so it's like, what I'm saying, like because I mean, look, you go into MSP, I've shadowed more MSPs I can count now because I wanted to learn about the industry. Like I didn't just
mhm,
want to like think I knew things. I clearly there's plenty I don't know what I don't know. I'll just put it that way, right? So going in,
yeah.
it's like it is chaos, man. Like it really is. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's organized chaos, but it's chaos at the end of the day for a lot of MSPs. So like the question of like time and capability is a legitimate one. So how would you?
Mhm.
Everything you said is correct, but how do they create that time for to do
Yeah.
those things?
Again, it's making the shift in your organization, in your business. It's setting the priorities, right? I mentioned earlier, a lot of MSPs, and I get it. I was a business owner of an MSP, and I had my team always saying, "Hey, we need to hire more. We need to hire more." And maybe we did, maybe we didn't. But the reality is when it comes to living and running a MSP in 2026, the business has to shift and adjust. So we got to create the business around what we're talking about: client experience, client communications, account managers, or whatever that role title may be. We got to have a focus on that role. That has to be a part of the business. If you're listening to this today, here's the advice: spend an evening one day in the next couple of days or weeks, and go get alone and look at your organization. Look at take a piece of pen, piece of paper and a pen, and start writing out your organizational chart. Put out your goals, what you're looking for. But when you do it, put in that account management role and then make it a priority and see what you need to do in your own business to make that role a big part of your team. You know, again, it's not about big fancy titles, but it's about getting the work done, getting the job done, and put an emphasis on that specific role in your company.
Do you think AI and automation are changing roles in MSPs? Like you hear a lot of people saying that the L1 role is
Mm-hmm.
either not going away, it's just shifting, or it is going in a way, and those L1s, which I believe one of the core tenets of, I can only speak for our products, right? But I
Yeah.
think a lot of people are, it should be upskilling people, like doing more with the same team members, right? Taking those
Yeah.
people that would traditionally be L1 and giving them the technology to upskill faster, to educate themselves faster, to be more efficient faster, right? Because at the end of the day, they don't want to stay in that seat forever anyways. They want to
Right.
move upward and progress in their career. I think AI offers the right AI solutions offer that
Mm-hmm.
ability to upskill, right? Do you think that AI, automation, and emerging technology alike are shifting these roles, and should MSPs embrace that to make room for, hey, you know what? We aren't going to have X role anymore, but those people
Mm-hmm.
now are going to be more client centric.
Yeah.
For example, right? It's making room to do more of these things that you're talking about. Or do you think it's more about, no, you just have to force this change, right? Interested to hear your
Yeah.
take.
you know, that's the benefit of AI, right? If we had this conversation 4 years ago, it's a different conversation. 4 years ago, AI wasn't as integrated and able to do a lot of those level one tasks. So 4 or 5 years ago, it would be the same conversation, but it would be, how do you force that role into your budget, into your business? Today, we have the benefit of the AI taking the tier one or level one roles and tasks, and that you can do a lot more utilizing the AI. And that's again when I mentioned, for the CEO of MSPs to sit down and really look at their organization, that should be a part of it as well. It's how do I shift these tickets or what's taking up my time, right? My support team's time. What's filling their calendar? And if it's tier one task, well, that's something AI can simply do or should be integrated to do for you. And then how much time does that free up? And then can you take some of that revenue savings and put it toward your account manager? Of course. So again, AI should be enabled. You should be using it as a team member, almost. And so, keep an eye on that and utilize it. Let it benefit your business. And that's where we had a few questions passed about adopting AI, and why I think internal MSP teams are using AI better, because they're utilizing tools like that and like yours to help their business be more efficient.
Yeah, I mean that is correct me if I'm wrong, but at the end of the day, like that is one of the promises I think of your product as well, is like efficiency in a different category, right? Gaining the
Mm-hmm.
insight and efficiency, being able to offer more and speak at a higher level of
Yeah,
expertise at a compressed amount of time, right? And
that's
not
correct.
taking as and being able to do it more often, like what you've talked about,
Mm-hmm.
not quarterly but monthly, right? Being able to go
Yeah.
in every single month and giving a monthly accounting, which I think is obviously very exciting. No, one of the things that my never mind. I think I lost my train of thought. I wrote something down, but I don't even remember what I was going to ask you. So I'll just let it pass. Is there anything else that we're just to close this thing out here? Is there anything else that we didn't talk about today that you feel like should be mentioned when it comes to the changing landscapes of MSPs and how we look at outcomes within the channel and further clients?
I think the changing in the landscapes and where things are moving, and what is very important in my opinion is, the MSP industry is very crowded, and most companies, again, I've done a lot of sales, helping MSPs grow their business, and that landscape is becoming very crowded. There's a lot of MSPs, and a lot of people are happy with who they're using until the person shows up with a different message. And so I think the biggest thing for MSPs today is you cannot stay still, right? Unfortunately, the evolution has always happened. We can mark it, you have the timeline of MSPs, and you can see the big changes. And so again, we're in that spot, that the bell curve, if you would, we're changing. We're about to hit that new bell curve. And the new curve is going to be that strategic planning, that strategic management. But it has to start with meeting with your clients today. Pick up the phone and start meeting. Again, the reason why I say the monthly meetings, it's just a 15-20 minute check-in. And again, that's where the operating system of MSP Report Card really comes through. Is it,
Mm,
it sets you up for that cadence, and it helps you really guide you and your account managers on having that. But again, if you're not talking with your clients, imagine when someone walks in. Again, just a little tidbit, a little information for MSP owners, so they understand that your clients are being called on. Several business owners have reported that the number one cold call they receive today is from the MSP industry. They get
wow.
cold calls throughout the week, but the number one companies or industry that is calling into business owners today are MSPs. So all it's going to take is that one business or a couple of business owners that you're doing business with get that phone call, they set a meeting, and your competitors have already started talking about strategic meetings, monthly meetings, the backup reports that I mentioned, other reports that they're not seeing. All of a sudden, your happy client with your support is now looking for someone that's going to help them strategically run their business through a technology, right?
Yeah.
So we have to make that shift, as you have to make that shift as an industry, and as an MSP. So my final thought is, start today. Don't wait. Start today, get a plan, and build it.
Yeah. I appreciate it, man. Clayton, a lot of golden nuggets of knowledge that we've had in this conversation. I appreciate you making the time. Also, I forgot to mention you're a part of the Pitch It competition by ConnectWise.
Mhm.
Congratulations on that. That's
Thank you. Yeah.
awesome. Wish you luck in that journey. Where can those listening, if they're interested in learning more about MSP Report Card or connecting with you, where could they find you?
Yeah, the easiest is mspreportcard.com. If you want to connect with me, I have a form you can fill out. You can call me. You can send me an email. LinkedIn is another good spot. It's just Clayton Mooney, and it's spelled Mouney. So reach out to me on LinkedIn, or send me a message off the website, and I'll be happy to connect. This has been a great experience, and I look forward to further communication and conversations with you, Jamie, and your company.
Thanks, man.
I'm excited to see all your success. And look, success breeds success. So
Yeah,
this relationship
absolutely.
right here is the beginning of I hope, a long-term
Yeah, man.
communication between the both companies. And again, I live by a thing called giver's game. I learned that in my networking group. but I love the theory of it. Giver's
Yes.
gain. I would love to give as much as I can, and if there's some gain in it in response, happy to have it as well. So anything I
Yeah.
can do for you guys, just let me know.
Thanks, man. I want to say I'm not sure if you know who Gary Vaynerchuk is, Gary V.
Uh-huh.
I'm a huge, I have been, I mean, for years and years and years now, a huge Gary V fan. And one of the things that he said that has always stuck with me, I was actually just talking about this in another episode I just recorded, different way of putting it, but
Mm-hmm.
his whole theory of give until they ask, right? It's all about the
Yeah.
value, right? And
Yep.
I'm a big believer in that as well. I'm a big believer that, revenue and just all the things that you hope for as a business and as a person are all byproducts of the value that you provide, and that those things really do take care of themselves, man. So right back at you. I'm a believer in, rising tide's going to raise all ships. I'm excited to see what you do with Pitch It and continue the company. I encourage everybody to go talk to Clayton, go look at MSP Report Card if it's something you think can help you in your business. And really enjoyed the conversation today, and we'll catch you guys next time. Thank y'all.